What's up, guys? Guess what? We're back, and today we're making my favorite drink. So if you guys are a beginner and you want to try making mead, this is the video for you. Stay tuned. We're going to show you what it looks like at the very end, and you'll get to understand why mead is such a special drink to a lot of cultures in the world, specifically to one of the most influential cultures, I would have to say, or peoples, I should have to say, which is the Vikings. So mead for the Vikings was almost religious. It's almost special. Mead was considered the elixir of the gods. Odin himself was an avid drinker of mead. He loved it so much, and all the gods would drink mead in their festivals and celebrations. It was passed down as a gift to human beings who, of course, loved fermented alcoholic beverages, and they started making mead. Now, the mead that the old Vikings would have made can be quite different than the mead that we're making here today. Obviously, rules like sanitation and the way they extracted yeast could be quite different. So today we're going to use a very standard method for mead, and it's going to be the most easy go-to basic mead that you can ever do, and it's going to turn out absolutely delicious. So if you want to impress your friends and family and whip out something cool in the next 8 to 10 weeks, this is the video for you. All right, guys, let's get into it. So first, what do we need to make mead? Well, first, you're gonna need a little bowl like this, and that bowl is gonna hold your yeast. Now, there are different types of yeast. So you can use a beer yeast, but you have to understand every yeast has a certain tolerance for alcohol, and that kind of correlates to how much sugar you put into your fermenter. And the science gets quite more difficult, but because it's a beginner video, we'll get into the simple one. I personally buy mead yeast, which is this one right here. If you're a beginner, go to your brew shop, ask for mead yeast, and they'll probably sell you something like this. If not, champagne yeast is a very popular option too. But if you tell them that you're making mead, they're probably gonna give you something that has a little bit of a higher ABV tolerance. And yeah, most of the time it's this one, so that's mead yeast. Then you want some yeast nutrient, which is what's going to feed the little yeasties along with the sugar and help the fermentation process. And then finally, you're going to need the most important ingredient, I would have to definitely say, and that's your honey. So as you can see here, I'm just getting some basic honey. It's a store-bought honey. Now, this particular blend of honey is a mix of international and local. The reason we bought this one is cost effectiveness on this one. As a beginner mead, you don't want to go too fancy. You want to go with a standard mead honey, something that's a little bit cheap, so you can get the ropes and understand what you're doing. Then you can move on to a little bit more of an advanced one. So this particular one here is pure sweet honey. Yeah, it's a nice mix. Now, as you can see, I've decided to put it into a little warm water bowl here, just to help the honey break up a little bit, so it's easy to squeeze into our fermenter here. Okay. Now, what we need to do is get this process started, but I wanted to show you quickly some of the honeys that we will be using for other meads. So, meads always have different characteristics depending on what you put in your fermenter, the type of yeast you use, the type of water you use, and also, and the most important, the type of honey that you use. So there's a lot of different types of honey with different additives, with different botanicals in there that will definitely give the mead different properties and different flavors. This is the fun part of the hobby. You can discover what particular mead you enjoy and kind of make your own little twist and see if it's a winner. But like I said, today we're going with something basic, and we're gonna just run with this standard stuck with the mill honey, something that tastes good international blend. And another big part of when you choose your honeys, make sure it's real honey. And I will make a video on this later on how to test honey. But what you want to do is put a little bit of honey on a plate, on a nice warm plate, and then what you want to do is you want to run a little bit of water on it. And if it starts to kind of form these honeycomb shapes, it's real honey, it doesn't have sugar added to it. If it starts to kind of melt or break apart, it's got sugar in it. So do your best to find honey that's 100% pure honey, not sugar added honey. It makes the world of difference, and you'll thank yourself later for it. All right, guys, let's get started. So first things first, there are thousands of videos on Cleanliness when it comes to fermentation, I won't get into it too much. Everyone knows that cleanliness is important. So because this is a beginner video, I'm gonna go over the basics, but basically what you want is you wanna get yourself something like this, which is a no rinse sanitizer. What that means is you can put your items within a little bath like so, and you don't have to rinse them afterwards to help kind of avoid, to kind of help with the recontamination of it, all right? So basically all it is, you put it in there once, you leave it for a little bit, it dries off, you're good to go. Make sure all your items are clean though. So if you're reusing, let's say your bowls, your dishes, your spoons, give them a good clean, then sanitize them. Don't just sanitize them and expect the best. Like if they're dirty, they're gonna infect your mead or your brew. So guys, very important, sanitize, clean, sanitize, clean, sanitize, clean, sanitize, all your things. Anything that the alcohol or the brew will be in touch with must be sanitized. If you skip this step, you've wasted 8 weeks, and you know, it's just not a good time, okay? All right, so let's get into it, guys. What we need to do is we are gonna sanitize this here bowl. So as I said, this is gonna be touching our yeast. So make sure it's nice and clean. As you can see, this is just some pretty warm water. There we go. Give it a nice little rinse around. There we go. All right, now earlier I put on a little bit of hot boiling water, and do not under any circumstance put hot boiling water and yeast together. It is a very bad idea. You will kill your yeast. But what I like to do is, because I want to put in a little bit of a warm pool mixture before I pitch my yeast, I use a little bit of the kettle water that I used from a plastic bottle, and I add the majority of just like filtered water. That way it's warm enough, you can pitch your yeast, and it's clean, it's sanitized, it doesn't have any chlorine in it, doesn't have any fluorides in it. I'm a big believer of nice clean water. It makes the world of difference, plus fluoride and chlorines aren't the best thing for you anyway, so try avoid it when you can. It will make a world of difference to your brew. Okay, anyway, let's get ourselves our water here. Got a nice 10-liter jug of it. And put that right in there. All right. Then we've got our kettled water. Boom. Maybe a little bit more. Yep, perfect, just enough. Then we add our little yeast. Now guys, some people like to kind of play with the method a little bit and they sprinkle it everywhere, so I'm just gonna show you how we do it. So there you go. Now remember, yeast are alive. I actually like to be really nice to my yeast and just talk in a low tone. You don't have to do that. It's just a little thing I like to do. They are alive, and they will make your brew. So the nicer you are to your yeasties, the harder they'll work for you, okay? So let's put that over there. Now, I'm gonna show you what that looks like. See? That's gonna sit in there for a little bit, and it's gonna get itself all mixed up. All right. Now the important part, right? We need to give this bit of a sterilize. So first, what I like to do, that's our funnel. Get our funnel sterilized. Give it a swish around. Anything that touches your brew must be sterilized, and it must be cleaned. Can't stress that enough. I've said this already, I'll keep saying it until everyone kind of gets it. But here too, as you can see, we've got a little latch on the top, so just get yourself a nice stainless steel knife. Give that a bit of a swirl. Pop that up, got ourselves a thing. Now, the downside with these glass carboys, especially even the little ones and the big ones, is they can get really, really slippery when you're sanitizing them. So just be really careful when you do it, because you can fall out of your hands. And it hasn't happened to me, but a lot of people do say that it slips out of their hands and they basically break it. So yeah, be careful of that, guys. All right, that's that one done. While we're letting that go on, I'm gonna put our stopper in there and our little fermentation breather. Let's bubble up and fart. It's pretty cool. And that's our next step. All right, guys, let's jump on to the fun part. All right, guys, here's the first batch. So I'm using roughly 2 kilograms of honey for this recipe. 2 kilograms is more than enough to get a good amount of mead. All right, guys, that's our carboy filled with honey. All right, stay tuned. All right, guys, now that we filled our carboy up with honey, we're just gonna give our little yeasts a stir here. We're gonna make sure that they're off all the sides and they're kind of all getting into the water mixture. Well, we don't wanna waste any yeast. We don't wanna leave anyone behind, sort of thing. So let it really sit. Try to get it off your spoon as much as possible. Don't let them get stuck. Try to get them off as much as possible. It's a little bit of a hard job, but as you can see, it's really worth your time to just let them kind of assimilate in there really well, so they're nice and comfortable and ready to make you some amazing mead. Now, guys, there's, like I said, what makes mead special to me is there's a supernatural element to it, right? Like I said, the gods of the Norse Viking mythology themselves love this particular drink. And I personally think a lot of it has to do with the way you treat your yeast. So there's a couple of videos which suggested that they actually found yeast from the air. They didn't even add yeast. It was something that they just let it sit and come into the fermentation process on its own naturally. I want to try that process at one point, but you know, with access to what we have, it's a lot harder. So you can always make your own yeast. I don't know about using bread yeast, but my theory is you treat your yeast nice, be good to them, they're gonna get endowed with the spirit of Valhalla and produce you a mead worthy of the gods. All right, guys. Now comes the hard part. So the hard part is gonna use out here big funnel. Put that bad boy in there. Give it maybe one more of a sanitization, bit of a rinse. Put that in there, and we're gonna get our water level probably up to 3/4 full, okay? Like I said, I use filtered water only. I don't use anything else but filtered water. I think if you're gonna make a brew and you're spending all this money, you should probably use some good water. It makes a world of difference. Gives you a good workout, so don't do shoulders on brew day. You'll definitely regret it. Ooh, that's a workout. All right, guys, let's check this out. So that's how much we have of our mead and our water. As you can see, right down there at the bottom, it's ready to go. All right, now if you check our little yeasties, they're starting to bubble. So they're starting to get a little bit of a bubble. They're starting to speak to us. So we're gonna pitch them really soon, and then we're gonna get our yeast nutrient, and gonna make sure they're all broken up too. It's really important. There we go. All right, so there we have it, guys. That's our yeast all ready, all broken up. Gonna add it to this here carboy, and that's almost the whole process of making mead. Now, this is where a lot of people get fancy too. They usually add their fruits and their additions to the mead. This is where, you know, the craftsmanship, I guess, the personal touch comes in. But guys, like I said, you're a beginner, first time making mead. All we want is good yeast, enough honey, clean water. Make sure your utensils are sterilized. Carboy like this really helps if it's glass. In the smaller ones, in the smaller varieties, when you make your bigger batches, you can change to plastic, and we'll probably do our next batch in a plastic one. But yeah, carboy like this is really good, and see how you go in your first one. All right, guys. Now this is the part where we add our little yeast mixture, and we do it nice and gently in the top. Beautiful. Look at that. See, it's just there's our yeasties in there. They're all smells. It actually smells really nice. It's just like a nice bread, you know. Really love that smell. Ever since my grandma, when she was younger, she would have this amazing recipe to make these apple pies, but they were fried on a stove top, and the hardest part was actually making the yeast. It would take almost like 2 days for her to perfect her yeast and for her to perfect her bread. And let me tell you guys, it is the most fluffiest apple pies you'll ever have in your life. But the smell of yeast would like be within the house for like a day or two. And as a kid growing up, I loved it. It was, you knew you would have the best reward coming at you in a day, you know. And I'm actually gonna get that recipe off her. I spoke to her the other day, and it's such a hard recipe. And you know what, she would make sure all the bread was folded properly, all by hand. You know, we have all machines now. It makes everything so much easier. But you know, she did it all by hand, and there's so much respect for the older generations and their cooking methods, all done by hand. I feel that just adds like that element of love. You know, when they say the secret ingredient is love, it's that hard work, and there's a lot to be learned from that and a lot to respect from that, guys. So, all right, back to our mead story. Now the nutrient gets pitched. So there we have our carboy. There we go. There we go. Some nice yeast nutrient. Beautiful, guys. All right. Now this is the final part. This is where we fill the rest of the water up. I'm going to show you exactly how much I like to fill it up to. Whew. There we have it. That's our carboy, all ready, all loaded, all set. So this is the part where everyone breaks their carboy. So don't break your carboy, please. Get this. Get a paper towel on the very top, like so. Hold it down and give it a swish around. You want to get all that oxygen, all those good nutrients that you just pitched, all that yeast into one happy bowl. Okay, there we go. There we go, guys. All right, now it's starting to look a little bit more like a mead, right? Look at that. Already we're getting there. Nice honey look. I couldn't be more excited about this. This is going to be amazing, okay? Now the final part, guys, we've given it a bit of a shake, given it a bit of a stir, worked up a sweat, and now really is the waiting game. So there are two more parts to this. The fermentation process takes hold, and then in about 2 weeks we do our second fermentation, where we place it into our second fermenter, and that's really where the mead is made. And when when it starts to really turn into the drink that we know and want, and then finally you can transfer it into your glass wine bottles, as it were. Don't call it wine. A lot of people get very offended. Do not call it wine under any circumstance. It's mead. Okay, guys. So I'm going to show you the final process. It's, you get your stopper. Give it a good shake. There we go. Put that one on top. Oh, guys, I should mention, when you put this in, don't put it in first. You gotta let the pressure go through so it can actually sit. So there's two little max lines. Don't have it go above that. That's where you want to sit it. There we go, guys. That's mead. That's how you make it. That's as simple as that.